Good afternoon. We're going to cover the watch list for December 30th, the last couple trading sessions of the year. If you're not in the room, you should be. And if there's a week to subscribe, I think this is going to be the week you'd want to, because I think there's a lot of things going to happen this week. And the market is probably going to pull back this week. And a lot of stocks, a lot, are overbought at extreme levels that just need to come down just to let some air out before they go up any higher. So I think once 2019 gets out of the way and the new year starts, I think we're going to see a completely different market. I could be wrong, but that's my feeling. So with that said, if you're not in the room, you should be, and if you're not a subscriber, you should be, because this is going to be probably a good week the next couple weeks, so you don't want to miss out. Okay, and to start off, I have hardly anything on the bullish scanner that I'm actually excited for on the way up, so I don't really see much. But things could change throughout the week with news, upgrades, and blah blah blah. So first one I have on my bullish side is BA, and BA's weekly is not the greatest. It's just chopping around the 320 to 380 area. So they had some news over the weekend, I guess. So I don't really care. BA is one of those stocks that it does not care about news. It gets bad news, it goes up. It gets good news, it goes down. So BA is just a completely weird stock when it comes to news. So I'll just go off the price action and not the news. So if it does happen to get over the let's see. Let's blow this up a little more so I can actually see. If it gets over this daily high of 330, 350, I'd look to go long to the 340 area. And if it does, manage to drop, I'll watch it down into the 320 for a possible bounce in that area. So we'll see. BA is kind of iffy depending on what's going to happen with the news, and it could be one of those things that even though it's bad news, the price could still go up. So we'll just keep an eye on that. The last one I have is FedEx. And FedEx, the reason I like it is a couple of reasons. It broke the trend line right here. It has a trend line of 152.65, which is the gap down resistance, and right here it bounced off it, and it created a cup and handle right here, and it gapped up over it, tried to go a little bit, but the market was sideways and it didn't have too much strength. But the thing I like about it is it came back and retested this trend line right here on the daily and the hourly. So we have the 30 minutes on the left, hourly in the middle, and daily on the right. But because it came back and retested that, if it does happen to get up over the let's see, if it gets over this 153.50 area, I think it's going to go for a gap fill. So FedEx, I liked it. It retested that support, and which was resistance, and if it does manage to hold, I think it's going to fill the gap. So FedEx looks good for a pop. Now on the bull side, I have quite a few, and the reason I have quite a few is just everything is just up too much. It can keep going up more, but I just think that when the new year gets here, January 2nd, 3rd, and the week after, I think that you're going to see a lot of the stocks let air out and come down a little bit, let the RSI and MACD kind of like breathe a little bit, pull back a little bit. So that's what I think. And the first thing I have is Roku. And Roku's been holding this trend line for, I don't know, since September 27th. So bounced here, and it's been like rising with it right here. But because as you can see on the daily, it rejected this line right here I have in the middle is a linear regression line, and it hit that and it bounced right off. So I think if it comes back and retests this trend line again, I don't think it's going to bounce. I think it's going to fall through it. So, and if it does, I'm looking for 128 if it does get down there. So I don't think the trend line is going to hold this time. It's held this much so far, and many will say, oh, that trend line is very, very strong, but the more it touches it, the more it becomes bearish. So that's it for Roku. And another one I have is Tesla. And Tesla's just, I mean, it's gonna pull back a little bit. So, I mean, it doesn't have to, but it's so far outside the Keltner channel on the daily that it does not like to stay outside it too long. So I would like to see it under the 425 area to pull back to at least probably 400. And as you can see, I mean, the RSI is what, in the 80s, 70. Oh no, yeah, 85. And let's see what it looks like on the weekly. I have the weekly on the other screen, so I'll put it over so you guys can see it. Yeah, see the weekly, I mean, it did break out over the 385, but I mean, you get 76 RSI on the weekly, and once it gets into this area, it likes to drop hard every time it gets the RSI gets over 70, 75 or whatever. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a pullback to 400 on Tesla. So I mean, I had news about these car tunnels and stuff like that, but who knows? I mean, people probably don't even care about that. We'll see how the market reacts, but a pullback to 400 is what I'm looking for. It may not happen, but we'll see what happens. Another one I have is Wayfair. I have Wayfair on the weekly. Now, Wayfair, I mean, it can go up and fill the gap, I suppose, but I just think that it's gonna, you know, we get a little bit of a divergence right here on the histogram right there, and then prices are going up and histograms going down. So we have a slight divergence, and you can see on the hourly right here, it's kind of like just consolidating. And when you see that, it's up by the top of the Keltner channel, it's going to come back and retest. So I'm actually looking for a pullback, not very much, probably to the 88 area on Wayfair. And I think it's going to eventually fill the gap, but we'll see if it does. But with the divergence right there and the consolidation above the top of the Keltner channel, I think it's going to pull back. Next one is Win. Win, pretty much the same thing. I mean, it's chopping up here in the 141 area, and it has a lot of resistance up here, and it likes to get rejected harsh up through here. So I think that, you know, it could pull back. Look for it under the let me get back to the daily. Let's say we get underneath the 138.50. Actually, let's say 138. Gets under this, it's probably going to fill the gap to 133. And if that keeps going down, it's got a chance to go down to 130. So Win, definitely looking for a pullback on that. Netflix, I mean, it came up here and the gap resistance, it failed on that and it's pulled back. So I'd like to see it, you know, pull back a little more. As you can see on the hourly, we played it on Friday, had a descending wedge right here. So the most ideal place for it to pull back would be down to the 315 area. And if it does happen to get some selling pressure and really sell off, then under 300 to 299 would probably be another pretty good buying area. But we'll see what happens with the market, if there's a big sell-off or if it's just a minor one. So if we even get one, I'm sure we will. URI, I don't really like this one that much. I've traded it, I think, once or twice, and it went against me both times. So this just keeps going up. Apparently rentals are really hot. But it's got a rising wedge. I think it should break out of it sometime soon, but it can keep going up. I mean, it had a rising wedge right here. It broke out of it and went up. Actually kind of went sideways and went up. So looking for pretty much something fairly similar below 167 for maybe possibly 160. and probably take off again. So looking to see if it breaks that wedge. And we also have an RSI divergence, so you can get this the high here, and we have a higher high, and the RSI is decreasing, and same with the MACD, and same with the histogram. But I mean, just because it's diverging doesn't mean it's gonna fall apart now. So divergences can last a very long time. So Humana, this is just going ridiculous. Now, what's kept my attention about it is that I am looking for, under, 363. Actually, 363 is pretty far away. Probably under the 368 area, I would look to go short, and it gets momentum, probably down to the 350 area. And I mean, RSI has been like really high. It's slowing down a little bit, and you get this big divergence going on with the histogram and a little bit with the MACD and the stochastics. But the thing that really has got my attention is it's got 9 green weekly candles in a row, and I was going back at the history of the stock, and it does not have 9 green weeklies. So I would say there's a high probability that this week or next week it's going to be red for Humana. So the more green weeks it has, the higher chance it has for the next week to be red. It's just too extreme in my opinion. So I think Humana could possibly pull back this week or next week, and that's what I'm looking for on that. Baba is another one. This is going to be depending on what happens with China and stuff like that. I mean, we still, I was just thinking last night that, we've had so much China news over the last 6 months, and ever since they said that we have this deal, and we haven't heard much from it in the last week. Maybe because it's Christmas or whatever, but it's been pretty hush since they had this so-called deal, and it's not been signed, and they're supposed to have some kind of signing ceremony in Palm Coast, Florida, or I don't know, somewhere down there at Donald Trump's place. I can't remember if that was the latest one or not, but there's so much going on, I can't keep track of what's happening and what's not. But last I knew that they were needed to sign it, and we haven't heard anything about signing it. So it's kind of like been kept quiet, kept in the dark. I still think it's a sham. I don't think anything's going to happen. So, I would keep an eye on BABA underneath 213.50 for possibly pull back to the 200. Yeah, 200 right there. I don't think the deal is going to go through. I think that something's going to come up, and it's going to make the market and BABA and all these other stocks pull back. So seeing a little bit of a divergence right here in the histogram, stochastics, but not on the RSI or the actual MACD. They're still rising. So we'll see what happens on that. Another one I have is Target. Now Target is, I think it's kind of interesting. I know Target's got like this like rising slightly wedge or going on in the daily, but this middle line, like I said, is a linear regression line, and every time right here it rides it, it dumps, and right here it did the same thing. It rides it, then it dumps. So it's done that 3 times. So I'm thinking that it's going to do the same thing. May not be this week, but it's definitely one to watch. Under 128, we'll look to go short down to the 122, the gap support area. I mean, I don't think it's good enough to fill the gap. It depends if it comes down here. It will definitely come back and retest the 122, and it could bounce a little bit, then fill the gap. It's not going to go. I highly doubt it's going to go straight down. So, but yeah, I think Target, it keeps riding this regression line right here, and when it gets underneath it, it's gonna dump. So I like Target. Disney, I don't think Disney has really much going for it right now. Star Wars is pretty much non-factor. Frozen's a non-factor, and not unless they release news about a sub count or something like that. I can't imagine that Disney's going to go up. So you got kind of like a head and shoulders still, or a descending wedge. So under 140, let's see, I like it right under the under 145, under the 145, and retest the 144.50 and possibly come down here and go to the 140 area, even 142. Yeah, so under the 145 to 142 to 140 on Disney. I don't really think there's really anything going for it right now. I think it's it could pop if it delivers news about a sub news or something like that, but I don't think that if it doesn't have any news, I don't think it has a reason to pop. So I guess we'll find out. Johnson & Johnson is another one I have, and this is another one like Humana, and I'll bring that up right now. I mean, it's got 9 weeks of green candles, and every time it gets up into the 147, I mean, Johnson & Johnson is going to be one to definitely watch all week, because when it gets over the 147, it likes to pull back harsh. Right there, and right there. I mean, it could break through and hit 150 just to make that nice fat round number, then come back and reject. But we'll have to see. But I definitely like that it had 9 green weeks like Humana. So, and it's kind of like consolidating right here on the daily. So, under the 145, I think we get down to the possibly 140. And if it really picks up steam, it could probably get down to the 138 on Johnson & Johnson. So I really like Johnson & Johnson. So that will probably be one of the ones I'll be really watching. Last one is Apple, which just seems to keep going like the Energizer Bunny and just never stops. And it's just gone from, I don't know, 192 to almost 300 in a few months. So that's just ridiculous. The fact that I've got the Fibonacci's up here, and the fact that it broke through the 261.8%, and when it broke through, it came back and retested it. So I wouldn't be surprised, depending on market conditions, if it does get below that retracement level, I would like to see it come back down to the 269. I mean, obviously it has to get through the support in the 278, then 269 on the daily. Let's see what the week. I mean, the weekly is just, it's ridiculous. I mean, this is probably the strongest move it's had, and it's, let's see. Yeah, see, this move right here, it's got to be its best year. I mean, come on. It went from 143 to, it's gone up over 100% in a calendar year, and I don't think it's ever done that anywhere else. So I think Apple needs to pull back at least to the 270 area. But like I said, it doesn't need to do anything. It can keep going. It's just stocks can always keep going for stupid reasons, but I think it's about time. I mean, it ran its course. I mean, they could push it to 300 to hit that 300 number, then drop it. So that is a possibility too. I mean, you do get a divergence going on just a little bit on the RSI and a little bit on the histogram, but you do have it on the MACD. But I mean, like I said, divergences can last a long time. So we'll have to see what happens to Apple. The worst case, it does go up and they push it to 300 before they drop it. But if they don't, gets onto the 287 area, we'll be looking to go short. So that's it for this watch list for the week. I got a lot more on the short side than the long side. That's because everything's pretty much overbought. And we'll see how the week plays out. Remember that Wednesday is New Year's Day. The market is closed. And so it's a four days this week. And New Year's Eve is a full trading day. I did look that up. So that's it.